You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting. The best in paranormal talk radio.
Hello, welcome to Paraversal Universe, where all paranormal perspectives apply. Join paranormal historian and ufologist Kevin Malik and psychic demonologist Jennifer Celsi-Malik as they navigate us through the different categories of the unknown and the unexplained, including ghosts and haunted places, cryptids and monsters, aliens and UFOs, theology and mythology, metaphysics, forbidden archaeology, urban legends and folklore, conspiracies, crimes, and corruption, with top analysis from the experts of these disciplines. If it's amazing, unusual, or mysterious, if it's bizarre, creepy, and fantastic, if it's unbelievable, paranormal, or supernatural, it's here on Paraversal Universe. Here are your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer.
Hello everyone, whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are, welcome to Paraversal Universe, brought to you by the Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society Limited at the Northwoods Paranormal Resource Center here in Rylander, Wisconsin. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Malik.
Hey there, everybody.
We're stoked to be with you today. We're always stoked to be with you. We are produced by the voice of Fate Magazine Radio, Kat Hobson, at WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. Paraversal Universe is also heard on our affiliate stations WCET 101.7 FM out of Columbia, South Carolina, Columbia Talk, as well as the Rift Radio Network family out of Lakeside, Virginia, and the Amelia Pisano Productions Radio Network out of Toronto, Canada. Welcome one and all. And hello to everybody in the chat room. We look forward to your questions and comments and interaction as always. The archive for the show will be available as well. Show archives from over the years can be found in various places on the web, including our archives like page on Facebook called Paraversal Universe Show Archives. Also check out our guest promo page, Paraversal Universe Radio, for what's coming up in the near future. We hope everyone is doing well. We just survived a brutal February here in Wisconsin. Wherever you are in the world and wherever you go, we hope that you fare well. Peace and blessings to everybody. And we have a killer interview coming up. Today we have private investigator Jax Menez Atwell with us. But before we bring him on, as always, let's do our shout-outs. Shout-outs go to those people who share our show banners this week. We always appreciate it greatly, and thank you so much. Who do we have?
This week we have Walt Christos, Dots of Christos, Katrina Cooper, Dennis Koch, Jason Bland, Paranormal Soup, Jamie Demelos, JJ Paranormal, Howie Odell, The Rift, Kate Hobson, WBHM, Ray Davies, Amelia Pisano, Lawrence DeMisa, Jean Broida, Lisa Renaga, Sudan, National Cryptid Society, and Lori Kreslaw.
All right. Thank you for all those shares, everybody. We really appreciate that. After 5 years of sharing our banners, we have reached all kinds of folks across all over the world. Thank you again. So today we have Mr. Jax Menez Atwell with us. Jax is a private investigator, urban explorer, adventurer, and actor with a passion for the unknown. His most recent show was the History Channel's Missing in Alaska, but now his newest adventure leads him to explore abandoned places around the world. What drives Jax is an inherent passion for the unknown, the unsolved, the bullied, and the lost. Mix that with a hero complex, an absolute love for nature, and being memorized by history, you have our next guest, Jax, who wants to take people with him, one adventure at a time. What does Jax love about abandoned places? Well, let's find that out. Jax, are you with us?
How we doing, guys?
Good, good. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been so long since we've talked to you. We're both really excited about you coming back.
Well, thanks for having me back.
Well, although it's been 3 years, you have earned the right to skip our initial question for first-time guests, which is, how did you get into this? We have already asked you that, of course. So let's start where we left off 3 years ago. You had finished a season with Missing in Alaska then, and no one knew if there was going to be another season. Tell us what you've been up to since Missing in Alaska, and we'll go from there.
Well, I'm kind of the type of person that just takes the bull by the horns for whatever God provides me and puts in front of me. So been doing a lot of different things. The biggest thing is, my investigative company's expanded now in several different states. So that has me on the road quite a bit. And that also allows me to, continue my hobbies of adventuring and exploring places, especially abandoned things. And it's kind of opened up a lot of doors. So I've mostly been a lot of business, but also been, started a small production company where we're doing short films. We've got a short film in edit right now. I was involved in a short film where I played the main bad guy, and that short film won an award back in was it November or October, something right around there of last year, for best cinematography. So we're actually reprising that role right now. I'm going to executive produce a prequel to that short film, and kind of how I got my start as the bad guy in that role. So we'll be shooting in Wyoming and Montana this summer. Hopefully have that done this fall. So just little projects like that I've been into, and then just my casework keeps me extremely busy on top of everything else with being a father and to my 4 kids and 3 dogs, and that goes.
Right, yeah. The Journey with Jax. That was the title of today's episode, and we love it.
Yeah.
Tell us how that came about.
It was kind of a birth with the creator of GCM Media, Trey Goodman. He's a fairly well-known Emmy-winning producer of television and film and documentaries. So we kind of just sat down over coffee, and he has a love of travel and exploring, and obviously I had that, and we just started brainstorming, and then that 2-person meeting became a 10-person meeting with other directors and people in the business, and all of a sudden it just kind of came about. It's been an interesting journey up and down, and I'd say right now, unfortunately it's in a little bit of a down, mostly because I want to have executive control over it and not have these larger companies trying to tell me what to do and how to do my show. A lot of that comes down to
Right.
Just to give an example, we're producing companies telling you, okay, well, we love what you got, but we need to sex it up. So we're going to bring in this female ... and it just, okay, well, it's not what I'm interested in. I do my life, my journey with Jax is my own personal life, whether there's a camera there or not. And so we've been waiting for the right opportunity. We had a big opportunity this time last year, actually, with in New York City with a large production company. And again, they wanted to change so many things that we just decided to, table it and keep it our own. So right now it's in a little bit of a downturn. We've got the first episode filmed, but just not really sure where to go with it. A bunch of other episodes are, partially done, because as you guys know, investigations don't occur overnight or in a couple days. Investigations take longer. So some of these things are already in line and, have the scripts and have everything working. It's just a matter of getting them all finished. Sometimes those investigations aren't completely done.
Right, and that's definitely a complete process there, because of all the steps you have to take to get to the point that you need to get your investigations at.
Absolutely.
And kudos on keeping it real, because you're right. It's easy for larger conglomerates to come in and start calling the shots, so to speak, which again changes the flavor, it changes a lot of things, and keeping it how you want it keeps it from being commercial. It keeps it from being redundant. It keeps from all of that.
Right. It's original.
Well, and it's also your own personal integrity. I am a legitimate licensed private investigator. That's my day job. That's what puts food on my table. You start, messing with those things, and you start getting, whether or not you're, out there doing things that people agree with or not, doing all that kind of stuff. It affects business, bottom line. To me, my company does well, and I don't need the accolades and the fame and all that stuff that some people jump at, and as you guys have seen on television with a lot of these paranormal shows, they get pretty eccentric and they add a lot of things to them. There's a lot of things that without just knowing television, how I know it, that I know is not true. And
right.
So the normal viewers looking at this as though this is true and this is fact, this is reality, and the reality is it's just cheap production. Bottom line is reality television's in place because we can thank the show Friends. Basically, producers got tired of paying actors $1 million an episode, and they thought, well, how can we captivate people and not have to pay people the way the actors are paid? And hence, reality television took off because we all have a voyeuristic, intellect into people's daily lives. Everybody wants to know what other people are doing. And it hit on something, and reality television is what it is, but bottom line is the majority of it is not reality. The majority of it is following a script, no different than me shooting a short film or, a feature-length film or, a television show. It follows a script. It has things of interest. If you guys have been involved in any kind of production, the kind of money that's involved in creating anything is a lot. So you're going to tell me during an investigation that these things just happen to randomly happen? Of course, some things do. Some things happen by chance and accident. But for the most part, stuff's very, very fake. I'm sorry to burst any of your bubbles.
No,
you're not.
And I just don't. And I just don't want that.
Right.
I prefer to have things that are me, authentically me, and if that gets no fans and no low love, then that's what it is. Just how I am. I live my life, and I want to, when I've had my time on Earth is over, people look back and it's all laid out and honest to people. The things I accomplished weren't, fake running with a noise and screaming when there's nothing there. And these things, silly things we see on ghost shows and stuff like that are just baloney. This ghost hunters, not to just single them out, but they did an episode in a place in Montana and I was appalled talking to the owners and the people there of what was created to make it for television. And it's unfortunate, because I think there's enough real reality in our own lives, to have to create it. But it's all about money. You got to get done with something in 4 or 5 days and move on to the next episode. And move, and keep pushing it out, pumping it out, and the quality's really hurt because of that.
Well, that's like, the same thing with ratings. They do that for ratings, and they go with what's popular for the year. Like one year, it's trending if it's a ghost, or it'll be even more trending if it's a demon. And you can tell, and we completely agree with you, when shows are scripted when you watch them, especially if you're into investigating like we are. These things just stick out to us like an elephant in a room, so to speak.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And and that was the beauty of YouTube, was that people were able to create content, and still are. I mean, it's demonetized now, and now there's censorship happening and all kinds of things. But having that platform for people to create, like you said, real life, everyday content. Not scripted, not the same old that we see with a different, same show, different people kind of thing, right?
Yep.
And like you said, once you learn the reality, we've interviewed so many people that have had negative experiences with television production that we are hesitant to even, I guess go there, for a few reasons, and that's one of them. Is that,
Oh, yeah.
And the other thing too is being taken out of context or anything else,
Right, but it's not just that too. We've gotten contacted by clients that we've worked cases for that have watched these shows on TV and literally waited 1 to 2 years to call us because they weren't sure if what they were going to get from us was exactly like what they saw on TV. And it wasn't until each of these clients sat down, with us and met us face to face, and we explained everything. And the first thing we told them, what you're going to get from us is not what you see on TV.
right.
That's so true. Stay true to what you guys do. Is sticking to it. If it's meant to be, something will come up and they'll respect what you do and it'll work. If not, you get to continue what you do. There's other ways to get things out there.
Yeah, exactly. So we have a, we were looking at your website, and you list 4 reasons why you love the new work you're doing with the journey with Jax, and I wanted to touch on each one and have you elaborate on it.
Okay.
Why don't we do one, and then we could take a commercial break, and then when we can come back, we can nail the other ones, and then discuss some other stuff then. But the first one was preserving history.
Well, that one's pretty easy, and I think we're losing our history. It's happening right before our eyes, and I can take this down so many rabbit trails. Just look at politics. I mean, tearing down statues and rewriting history. We can go into that, but just looking at things such as buildings and taking down the old, putting up the new. It rewrites things. If it's not there for people to digest it and see it, feel it, and do it, then it's gone. And I like to always refer to the phrase, if it doesn't exist on Google, it doesn't exist. And that's really sad because there's a ton of stuff in life, in this world that we have that hasn't been covered by Wikipedia or Google or any of these other, search things. And that's a shame. Or maybe it's something that gets a little paragraph, of a description, but never, can be seen or touched as it disappears. And you look at you guys on the East Coast, you've got so many awesome insane asylums and things that life that most people now can't even comprehend, let alone, be able to even think about it. So the history in itself is just disappearing before us. And if you don't get out there and have somebody create some sort of tangible, hey, I'm here, this is what I see, this is what I'm hearing, this is what I'm smelling. And obviously our, the platform is video, visual, but then it's saved and it's out there. and people can see it and they can look that up. YouTube and the Mail and these other, movie platform or film platforms are great to actually see what people are doing, other adventurers and explorers, because these things are disappearing. In Arizona and Montana, both, you've got mines and history of, wars with Native Americans and things that I'm a history buff that you might not even know, and it just disappears, because time goes. You move away a sign, you take away a building, and all of a sudden it's gone. Now, let's just take that even further, and you got stuff like cold cases that were never solved, cases that were, potentially never even brought forward. Maybe at the time it was a death that was considered natural, or, there was no sort of cause to believe it was a murder. But what if it was? And what if there's more evidence now, and it's just washed away? Those are the things that I'm talking about with that first statement.
Yeah, and we completely agree with you. It's like a good example. You mentioned insane asylums. I love like the architecture of like the old Kurt Fry buildings alone are just wonderful.
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
history.
Amazing.
The history is dark, but at the same time, people should make them into museums where people could go and see the history instead of just tearing them down.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And if you don't have history, you don't learn from past mistakes. And we're obviously seeing that right now with some of our politicians that are out further than left field. History just repeats itself if you don't learn from it.
Okay. And with that, it is time for our first commercial break. You are listening to Paraversal Universe. We will be right back with our guest for the next segment.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope.
That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson, Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 23 minutes after the hour.
Welcome back from our first commercial break, everyone. This is Paraversal Universe on WBHM Digital Broadcasting, WCET-FM, the APPRN, and the Rift. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Malik, and we'd like to take a minute to thank everybody who makes Paraversal Universe possible, including graphic art director Lawrence D. Miza, music theme by Matt Stenz, announcer Frank Lee, producer and network owner Kat Hobson at WBHM. Shoutouts to our other affiliate network owners, Howie Odell at the Rift family, Michael Vera at Late Night in the Midlands and at WCET, and to Amelia Pisano at Amelia Pisano Productions Radio Network. Thank you all for carrying our content. You guys rock. And working together on our behalf and the behalf of our audience everywhere. We really appreciate that, and thank you. And of course, a huge thank you to God in heaven, whose strength beyond strength is stronger than all, for granting us this wonderful show and opportunity here to be with you all.
Amen.
Amen.
An appreciation to all the various platforms we're on, including iTunes, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Twitch, YouTube, Daily Motion, TalkStream Live, TuneIn, Blog Talk, Podbean, Google Play, Mixcloud, and Paranormal Radio Livestream app, which is streamed and restreamed from various other outlets all over the world via the internet. All right. This segment of Paraversal Universe is brought to you by the UFO Wisconsin Research Team, Wisconsin's alternative to MUFON. And we are talking to Jax Menez Atwell. Are you still with us, Jax?
Yes, sir.
Alrighty. So when we were talking about your the work you're doing on your new show, Journey with Jax, and before we went to break, we discussed one of the 4 things that you had mentioned that you really like about the show, and that was preserving history. The second one, which I thought was really interesting and true, is the trek to them. You talk about that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's your, physical portion of getting to something, whether that's, a journey using some sort of vehicle or, aircraft, or literally, your own body power to walk, to hike to something. And that is a big part of what I love. The journey to get to something, it makes getting to the area that much better. And, nothing better than after, hiking to something, lost or, that's out in the middle of nowhere, and, taking that deep breath, getting some water and enjoying the first initial views of an abandoned place, or something that's just out bygone and forgotten. To me, that's one of the greatest highs of what I do.
That's awesome. And yeah, and when you think about it, and when I think back, when you said that, and I thought about it for a minute, when you watch, people who film and they go to different places, and a lot of it is the travel, getting there, and or getting back, but usually, and a lot of stuff happens in, whether it's different countries or there's cultures and customs and, just so much. It's cool. It's really cool. It's a very cool part of legend tripping, I think. The third thing was discovering new sites. Can you talk about that?
Well, is that the goal of everyone, is to find something new? What new might be something old that's been completely forgotten, which happens. Things that have been buried. I got to experience an old speakeasy in Butte, Montana. That was something that was new to me, although it was very old, that had been buried for a long time. And, but the experiencing new things, new creations, new things that are out there. I mean, it kind of goes with what I was just talking about before, the journey. It's just another part of the high of adventuring and feeling this world out.
And then the last thing was the stories they hold. And I think that ties into some of what you just said.
Yeah, but this is a little different. What I'm referring to here is, almost kind of like the phrase of if the walls could talk. You hear old timers say that all the time.
Right.
If the wall would be a fly on the wall. These walls, these old buildings, they have stories. They've seen crazy things, and that's a little more what I'm referring to. And sometimes these places, hold both unsolved mysteries or untold mysteries. Again, I think we were talking about on the break a little bit of things that just never have come out, that have occurred to people because of the time period it occurred in. This day and age, we have a lot of abilities to, voice our opinions, to let people know when we're victims. Many times in history and in the past, and in different parts of the world, none of that could happen. And you could be a victim and no one cared, or no one would do anything about it. And, those type of things with walls to talk, well, that's part of researching and figuring that stuff out, investigating those things, finding out what, occurred in these places. And then once in a while, as an investigator, we come across a case, that you're trying to investigate and figure out and put the pieces back together from a bygone era, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah, that is for sure. And for example, there are a lot of abandoned ghost towns throughout America from the railroad era, when like in the late 1800s into the early 1900s, like in Wisconsin, for example, there's a ghost town, probably, I want to say just a little over an hour from here. Nobody knows about it. And that's because this town was literally established on a railway, the first railway to come through, which, like, I think it was, 30 years later, they came through, a different railway came through, and they reestablished a new set of tracks, and they pulled up the old set. And then the town literally ceased to exist overnight. And you can still go there, and the foundations are there, and the chimneys are there, and make sure you go with somebody, because even the holes from the outhouses are still there. You don't want to fall into one of them, right? But
yeah, for sure.
But yeah, and they're dotted all over, and you never hear about them, and people don't talk about the and for us, they're treasures.
Yeah.
It's
like the cemetery up here that we found, Wolfsgram.
Yeah.
That's completely abandoned, and it's in the woods. And unless, what it is you it's in a little town. You go across the street to this Catholic cemetery. You literally have to walk for a little bit in the woods to get to it. If you didn't know where to go, you would have no idea that cemetery was even there, and it's completely abandoned.
75 years.
Yeah. Abandoned is awesome. That's all I can say.
Yeah, it is. And on sites like that.
You know what?
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, we're having kind of a modern abandonment going on. I don't know if you guys have paid attention to this, as our economy shifts to a different type of consumer, and we're seeing the death of malls and strip malls and large companies such as department stores, and so you get these monstrous buildings that are lying empty, and kind of creating their own abandoned modern era. And it's literally happening before our eyes.
Yeah, that reminds me of like the cataphiles or different cultures that actually evolve around.
Yeah, because we subscribe on YouTube to a couple of channels that do urban exploration, and some of the stuff they find is amazing. Like we watched this one couple that do it, and they went into a literal abandoned hospital, and this hospital still had its electricity on and left every single piece of equipment that it had. So when they left this hospital, they never even took any of that equipment. And you know that all that equipment is just like more than a pretty penny.
It was at that time, for
It was
sure.
at that time,
right?
for
Yeah.
sure.
But yeah, the things that some people leave behind, also, and you think like some of these beautiful buildings, and you think there were men who probably spent years at some of these locations, working every day, doing their craft, doing their trade, working on an amazing, beautiful building that, for whatever reason, all of a sudden nobody wants to use anymore. And it goes, and, it's just to think that, like you said, if the walls could talk, some of this they would have. And, it's interesting you bring up talking walls. The last Paralogian report we did, we had one of the stories we covered was they're actually building smart walls now, where they put these like little tiny bits into the paint that can transmit, and they're attempting to turn a wall into like an equivalent of a touch screen, for example.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and when they asked the guy, one of the engineers on this project, he said, well, talking, if the walls could talk, we thought it'd be a great idea. So we're setting out to do just that. Now, on one hand, it sounds really cool, right? On the other hand, it's really invasive, depending on who's in charge of the power of that or the control of that. So it's kind of, on one hand, it's cool, but on the other hand, it's very dangerous, I think.
Well, you got to be careful because you don't know, who or what you can encounter on Explorers and what you may find that you don't necessarily want to find.
Ooh. And that's it. Have you ever come across anything like that, Jax? Anything that sticks out in your mind?
I come across so many things, but you always have the abuse of power, which is always, whenever you have that, people have power, they're always going to abuse it. So, that happens all the time. In fact, that's usually why things end up getting abandoned. In Butte, Montana, you had all the, it was a booming, one of the largest cities of America, which you would never know by looking at it now, but it all went up in flames as people abused their power and literally would start fires for the insurance. And so you run into those kind of things all the time.
Yeah. So, let's see, what time do we got? Oh, we still have a few minutes before our next break. So, of the places that you've been since, well, let me ask you this, because you go to a lot of cool places. What's your favorite place or the place that I guess really
stuck with you?
Oh, that's a hard one. It's hard when you have, I've been allowed to go to places that are quite varied. And I'm a kind of person that I embrace change and just love doing new things and seeing new things. I mean, obviously, Arizona and Montana and Alaska are my three states that I hold a lot of, love in. I'd probably say Montana is my favorite place to be in. If I could be there year round. But it's hard to say because I just love doing so many different things. I mean, I've, been in old abandoned prisons in Ohio and in insane asylums and all these different places. And it's like each one is so unique and you come away from it with such a unique experience, if you're open up to it and that you love. I mean, obviously, my place that I love being is the mountains, and that doesn't always necessarily afford, abandoned places, but the mountains to me just have so much majesty to them. And so places like Alaska and Montana obviously have my heart because there's so many mountains. I go out to upstate New York quite frequently due to family being out there, and it's just nice and flat. It's really green, but as you start looking at the horizon, I miss those mountains because they say it's almost like those are speaking too. They're large pieces in our sky, but mountains are alive and well with their water and elements that are inside of them. And just a big part of me is just enjoying nature and being up on a mountain. And there's quite a few things you come across in mountains that are very strange too. Old encampments and mines and all kinds of stuff like that that can be a lot of fun. So that's definitely where I like going the most. But I just enjoy going to do new things. I mean, I get called all the time. Hey, you want to come to this state and go do this with me? I'll hop on a plane and go do it with you if I can. And it's just to experience something new.
That's cool.
So I guess ultimately I'd say my answer is probably just anything new.
Right. Well, that's a good answer.
That is a very good answer.
And I know it's a tough question. If someone would ask me that same question, I would struggle with it too. There's so many places and different things stick out at different times. But with, as far as the mountains, that's majestic.
Yeah.
And the biggest mountains I've ever seen, and I guess I don't know if you'd even call them mountains, would be Tennessee and the Black Hills. Because I've never been west of the Mississippi, and I've never been east of Cleveland. So, but when I see pictures or video of like the Rockies or the Himalayas or the Andes, it's just amazing. And trying to put myself in that spot on, like, when I look at a picture or a video and think how awesome it is,
Oh yeah. It makes you feel like in your place in the world too. I think sometimes when you're roaming around the city, and you're just this part of this big machine, and maybe even feel like, it gives you a little too much, you're too much, you think you're too big in your own self. But when you get on top of a mountain by yourself, you realize what a speck you are in this world. How tiny and insignificant ultimately you are in the scheme of things. Where I think sometimes living in the city, you get, just too big for our own britches, and we don't know quite what to do with it. And then you get out in nature and you realize, wow, okay, time to humble yourself.
Okay, everybody, and with that, it is time for our next commercial break. You are listening to Paraversal Universe. We will be right back with our guest for the next segment.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 45 minutes after the hour.
Welcome back from our second break. This is Paraversal Universe on WBHM Digital Broadcasting. Also heard on WCET 101.7 FM, Emilio Pisano Productions, and the Rift Radio Network family. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Malik. Before we get back to the show, we want to tell you all that we are on Twitter and as the NWPS and MeWe as Paraversal Universe. Our like and group pages on Facebook are under various headings as well. Having said that, check out our Society's Like page on Facebook, the Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society Limited, as well as Jennifer's like page, Jennifer Malik, Psychic Demonologist. Leave a like if you like what you see, and we always appreciate it. And there are some Facebook group pages on. We also want you to we'd like to turn you on to the Ultimate Conspiracies group page is one, and the Lake Monstrosities group page is another. That one's for Aquatic Mysteries and Wonders. Feel free to join them both. We'd love to see you there. Each network mentioned also has a group and like page on Facebook as well. This segment is brought to you by the book Trail of the Sasquatch, A Shaman's Journey by cryptozoologist and Iroquois shaman Don Young, who's also a member of the NWPS. Check out his Facebook group pages, Kindred Force and Indigenous Americas. And any comments for the show can be addressed in the live free chat room. Let's get back to the show. This is Paraversal Universe, and we were talking to private investigator Jax Menez Atwell from Journey with Jax and formerly missing in Alaska. Are you still with us, Jax?
Yes, sir.
You know, even though they aren't filming any episodes of Missing in Alaska anymore, because the show is so huge, you will always forever be associated with it. Do you think there will ever new episodes, and do you still chat with Ken and Tommy?
Oh yeah, well, Ken and I especially. Ken and I stay in a lot of contact, and Tommy also. It was definitely a brotherhood, bonded. You know, when you do those type of things that were once in a lifetime experiences, and you're doing them with somebody, you exchange a piece of yourselves with that person. Right. You know what I mean? So, Missing in Alaska, I mean, it was doing things that most people would dream of doing. Just one thing that we did in a lifetime, and we were doing them every day. For me, it was just amazing to see a place I had grown up in, and a family up there in Alaska, and be able to see it from a different angle. With the money to support how we'd all love to see it, by helicopter and by plane and by with the right equipment and with guides and all that good stuff. I mean, it was just an amazing experience. And anything put on by the History Channel, obviously, is pretty huge. Pretty proud of it. I mean, we did 13 episodes, which was, in the scheme of reality television, is almost 2 seasons. So, it was a hard journey. It was a lot of rough days and long, extreme days, but I wouldn't have traded it for anything.
That's awesome. We still like watching that every so often.
Yeah. I mean, you guys with that show opened the public's eyes to so much stuff that they didn't know was going on, that it was amazing. We still watch the episodes.
Yeah. I think some of our episodes might have, triggered why we're not on.
Yeah, we can think of a few in particular.
If there's any shame in that, I don't know. I mean, to me, I'm a confrontational person. I don't think I would have, hindsight, I don't think I would have changed anything just because it's gonna, hurt somebody's feelings or, bring up science or something like that the government doesn't want us to know about or things like that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think it's our diligence as investigators that open the public's eyes, and if you don't do it, if it's not you, then it doesn't get done.
Yeah, that's part of the reason we like doing this show is being able to get out there and turn people on to new things and let them know what's going on in the world, and the best way we can do that is by having you know, different folk on, you know, people like you and others who, you know, do that. So
For sure.
We have just a couple minutes left with you. We know that you need to leave at the top of the hour. I want to make sure that we get your information out there, as far as if people want to contact you. And we were for the last few minutes when we were on break, you had mentioned that you know, with all the cases that come in and flood your desk, that you get a lot of paranormal stuff too, and you do believe that the paranormal can happen. And at least I think you do. It sounds like you do, anyways. Can you talk about that for a little bit?
Oh yeah, I mean I get quite a bit of, you know, everything runs through my business, Atwell Investigations. You know, and I get every type of call, and our company handles everything, you know, from the extreme to your what people would, you know, consider PIs to do, your infidelities and stuff like that. And before I was on this radio with you guys, I was on a phone call with a major forensic case. You know, it probably has some political and spy stuff involved. You know, so you know, I run the full gamut. So back to the paranormal stuff. I mean, those come. I mean, people. You know, a lot of other investigators that, you know, just do domestic work or insurance work or those kind of investigative functions, they usually, you know, slam the phone down on these type of cases. I don't. I'll give them a listening ear, and I'll hear people out. And I don't necessarily take all of them, because in this day and age with mental health and stuff like that, and medications, trust me, there's some pretty wacky stuff I get. And obviously I got to be careful with, you know, where my time, where my time and money and investigations go. But, you know, we do get the paranormal type of cases. You know, I've got a long-standing one right now here in Arizona, where I'm at right now, that, you know, this lady's got voices that she's hearing in her house, and I can't disprove it. There's definitely stuff going on in this house, and it's very strange. You know, it's a continued thing, and it kind of goes in spurts for her. You know, so it's just when she's got a problem, I come over there and I try to capture as much evidence for her as I can. We've recently added a military grade piece of equipment that does infrared. FLIR is the brand. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of it, but this is the same you know, type of instrument that would be on, you know, the team leader's headset, you know, on the ground as infantry. It's not available to the public, but I ended up doing a case for them and was able to get my hands on it. And trust me, it's an amazing piece of equipment for the paranormal.
Oh, nice.
It sees a lot of things that I've never been able to see, even on other FLIRs. I mean, I had in Missing Alaska, we had 3 different FLIRs, and I've had several different for my investigative company, and nothing's performed like this. And the other good part about it is it also records, you know, which is one of the biggest problems with infrared detection, is a lot of the devices don't record, or if they do record, you can't zoom or move around, or it completely distorts it. So whatever your setting was at, your distance that you're viewing it at, usually is not what you want it to be at, and then it records and it doesn't show. So this allows the freedom of movement of the lenses while recording and not distorting. So it's been an amazing piece of equipment to use in the paranormal. I've actually even had a couple of, you know, shows contact me knowing that I have it, seeing if I want to be on their show, and that type of thing. Because it's an amazing piece of equipment. And as you guys know, infrared equipment with the paranormal, it's one thing I lean on heavily. I'm not a big voice box person. I do use audio recordings and stuff, but I think with as much stuff as we have in the air, a lot of that stuff can be distorted and be wrongfully recorded, as, you know, maybe what you're looking at and dealing with. Now, there are people that disagree with me. That's fine. I don't dismiss it. It's just got to be a piece of the investigation. But I really enjoy using the infrared. I think with the paranormal and even demonic and angelic type investigations, there are clear indicators around our human signatures that you can identify. And so, again, it's just a tool and it's just a piece. I don't say, hey, this is what I got and that's fact. No, it's all about putting it all together in a totality of the picture, and that's how you're supposed to do your investigations. I see so many investigators get hung up on a tool that they use or a piece of equipment and the evidence that came off of just one thing. Yep. And, if you look at even like a criminal case, you can't convict somebody off of just one thing. You know what I mean? It's a totality of circumstantial and other pieces of evidence that create a conviction. Well, the investigation into the paranormal is no different, and you can't just rely on one thing. If you do, I think that's when you get misled and can look, pretty silly.
Wise words, everyone.
Right.
Because that's true. I mean, for us, as a historian, triple validation.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like for me, triple validation is gold. Now, anytime we use an array of stuff, and I know what you're talking about. I can't tell you how many times I've seen videos where all they use is a wonder box. It's like, or they're not trying to back up anything or get any other readings or collaborate evidence. Hey, we just picked up something on this. Let's see if we can, let's check the temperature. Let's check the ultraviolet, let's check the pressure, whatever we got to check, to try to put something together so we can say what we got here, which is anomalous and we can't explain, is also backed up by something else, which is anomalous and unexplained. That's when it starts to, be more convincing and whatever.
Well, but everybody talks about physical equipment. You're forgetting one of the most major pieces of equipment that you can ever use. Your body.
Oh yeah,
yep.
For sure. There's times, in my investigations, both paranormal and my normal investigations, such as a criminal case, I see these a lot in major cases, such as people that have hidden a death or a murder, that type of thing. That's a major, what I call it, a burden. It's literally a physical burden that is upon them, and it's something that if you're in tune with yourself in your own senses, you can really pick up on those things, and that can set you on the right path right away.
Yeah. Alrighty. Thank you so much, Jack, for taking time out of your day and catching up with us, and we wish you all the luck and success in the world with Journey with Jax. And all that.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. It was again, like before, it was a good time having you on, and we were so grateful and thankful that you were able to come back.
Can you share your contact information with everybody, please?
Oh yeah, easiest way, to find me is my name, Jax Menez Atwell, but several websites of interest: AtwellInvestigations.com, my JourneyWithJax.com, and JaxMenezAtwell.com. Obviously on all the big social medias, Facebook, and Instagram, and Twitter, under the same name. And what else? If you guys are YouTubers, check out my award-winning short film, The Survivors, the short film. We've got, I think, close to 200,000 views so far. It's pretty crazy for a short that we made out of $600 and a lot of sweat and labor. So check that out. We'll be reprising that soon. And let's see what else. I've got an IMDb account, Jax Menez Atwell also, if you want to check out what films I've been in and what I've got on the burners right now.
Excellent.
Awesome. Definitely everybody out there, if you get a chance, check out all the links that were mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely.
You guys are awesome. Appreciate you having me on.
Oh, thank you for coming on. And again, good luck with your investigations.
Of course. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, there he goes, everyone. So when we come back, we are going to switch gears and do the Paralogian report for a little while. There's some interesting stuff we want to share with you and all that.
So, you are listening to Paraversal Universe. Stay with us, and we will be right back for the next hour after this break.
NPR podcasts are now available on every platform. Check out all our shows at npr.org/podcasts. That's npr.org/podcasts.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lori London. The Trump administration is keeping up the pressure on Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro to cede power. NPR's Michelle Kellerman tells us the U.S. is imposing more sanctions and revoking the visas of officials close to the embattled leader.
The latest sanctions target security officials who helped Nicolas Maduro block U.S. assistance. U.S. envoy Elliot Abrams says the State Department is also revoking visas for dozens of Maduro's supporters and their family members.
We continue to look at close associates of Maduro, who, with their families, have visas to the United States. This is an ongoing process.
The U.S. backs National Assembly President Juan Guaido and is urging more countries to recognize him as interim president. Abrams says he's concerned about Guaido's ability to return to Venezuela from his current trip through the region. Michelle Kellerman, NPR News, the State Department.
The ride-hailing service Lyft has released its financial details about the company as it prepares to begin selling its stock to the public. NPR's Camille Dominowski reports.
As part of Lyft's IPO, some shares will be made available for purchase by drivers, and Lyft is also offering its most prolific drivers a one-time cash bonus as high as $10,000. The new documents reveal Lyft has more than 10 million active riders, and revenue increased sixfold over the last 3 years. The company says it sees significantly more growth in its future. However, Lyft is not making a profit. In fact, it's losing money year after year, and the company acknowledges it faces intense competition, most notably from its larger rival Uber. Uber is also preparing to go public, but it hasn't yet filed the paperwork that Lyft just submitted. Camila Dominowski, NPR News.
Israel's attorney general says he's preparing to indict Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on corruption charges. NPR's Daniel Estrin explains the accusations.
He's accused in 3 separate cases. The Attorney General has put out very detailed allegations. They boil down to Netanyahu's dealings with businessmen and his alleged efforts to control press coverage. The most serious allegation is that Netanyahu used his authority to approve regulations and business deals that allegedly netted close to $500 million for a businessman. And in exchange, Netanyahu got to dictate positive coverage about himself in the businessman's news website.
Netanyahu has furiously denied the charges, blaming leftists and the Israeli Justice Department for concocting a false plot. On Wall Street, stocks rose to end the week on a high note. The Dow gained 111 points. This is NPR News. The man who has overseen the creation of some of HBO's biggest hits is stepping down after nearly 30 years. As NPR's Andrew Limbong reports, CEO Richard Plepler's resignation comes just months after the telecom giant AT&T merged with Time Warner.
Bring me his head. Game of Thrones, Girls, True Detective, just some of the hit shows HBO put out after Richard Plepler became co-president in 2007. In a letter to HBO staff, Plepler wrote that leaving HBO was trusting his instincts and, quote, "I can move on to the next chapter of my life, knowing that the best team in the industry remains here to carry on our continued progress and success." His departure comes at a pivotal time for HBO. It's expected to face legal issues over the big Michael Jackson documentary airing this weekend. It's been less than a year since AT&T became the channel's new owner, and it's facing more competition from streaming services, Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon. Andrew Limbong, NPR News.
Southwest Airlines is suing its mechanics union, alleging some workers are pulling planes out of service for minor mechanical issues simply to gain leverage in contract talks. The filing in federal district court in Dallas claims an illegal work slowdown is grounding planes and disrupting flights. More than 6 years of fruitless contract negotiations have created bitter feelings on both sides. I'm Lori London, NPR News in Washington.
Welcome back to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 5 minutes after the hour.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is Paraversal Universe on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. Also heard on the Rift Radio Network out of Lakeside, Virginia, WCET-FM and affiliates out of Columbia, South Carolina, and on Amelia Pisano Productions Radio Network out of Toronto, Canada. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Malik, coming to you from the still frozen tundra of northern Wisconsin, here at the Northwoods Paranormal Resource Center in Rylander. You can always enjoy excellent fringe talk radio information about the paranormal, supernatural, esoteric, and Fortean topics on our network and affiliate platform websites. Not only our show, but many other good shows about different facets of the unknown and unexplained. Much to listen to and much to enjoy. In this hour, we will switch gears and go to the Paralogian Report format with correspondents that are joining us now. Psychologist and ufologist Jean Breida and Paralogian and radio personality Kat Hobson. How are you ladies doing?
Doing great.
Well.
And this segment is brought to you by the Supernatural Magazine, where our articles can be read, and by the Daily Conspiracy and Lightworker 111, correct? Where Jean Breida's articles can be read. All right, back to Paraversal Universe and the Paralogian Report, which, as I said, covers news and history and analysis about topics from the fringe recesses of the world, be it paranormal, supernatural, esoteric, or esoteric. And so Jean can start us off. She's brought an article to the table. How are you, Jean? How's it going?
Well, as I said before, I'm fine as frog's hair and so happy to be amongst us again. And a big shout out to our listeners who are awesome.
Yes.
My article today is one I actually wrote and was published recently on thedailyconspiracy.com. In fact, today it appeared. It's today's headliner. Being odd is the new mental illness is the title. And here we go. This is somewhat alarming, so fasten your seatbelts. Did you know that the main professional organization of psychiatrists has declared that arrogance, narcissism, above average creativity, cynicism, and antisocial behavior are all now newly declared by them mental diseases? The American Psychiatric Association, APA, has taken upon itself the task of classifying mental disorders. Their Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, DSM, is the standard for the medical profession and, quote, is used or relied upon by clinicians, researchers, psychiatric drug regulation agencies, health insurance companies, pharmaceutical companies, the legal system, and policymakers, unquote. One big problem with classifying personality traits as mental illness is that the person's legal status changes dramatically. Civil privileges, such as driving, can be restricted or revoked. Someone diagnosed with a behavior might well be forced into a treatment institution with no right to check out without the official approval of others. The prospect of having to prove you're not crazy after a medical categorization is not a pleasant one. a highly talented artist might create great work that expressed a satiric point of view or one contrary to the official government narrative. Under the new mental illness system, such a person has a disease. Think about that for a minute. Now add to the list of arrogant, narcissistic, unusually creative, cynical, and antisocial mental misfits a brand new made-up disease that will surely threaten many outspoken victims' freedoms. You've got to hand it to the shrinks who came up with this insidious mental illness. Oops, there I go, being all cynical again. Judge for yourself. Oppositional defiant disorder, or ODD, ODD, is, quote, ongoing pattern of disobedient, hostile, and defiant behavior, unquote. Symptoms that you are in an odd way include questioning authority. My bracketed comment, are they serious? Number 2, negativity, ditto. Defiance, my comments, ditto, ditto. Argumentativeness and being easily annoyed, my comment, triple ditto. The DSM, that manual of standards, medical standards for diagnosis, spells out how many of the disease symptoms must be present as identified by the APA-approved diagnosing doctor to make a positive diagnosis of a mental illness. The APA must be counting on the fact that many people have never heard of DSM-4, Roman numeral 4, where ODD made its first official appearance. It doesn't take that much smarts to figure out that the psychiatric elite are changing the game through legal means to allow the arbitrary diagnosis of anyone who mouths off or dissents. It doesn't take any smarts at all to know that extremely creative people are not mentally ill. What gives these medical professionals the right to say they are right and the rest of us are wrong? Medical doctors are in the business of diagnosing, treating, and curing diseases. Having created a whole new billing category for ODD cases, these physicians, sworn to the Hippocratic Oath, offer treatment. Is that surprising? Does Big Pharma have a hand in this new medical business? Of course they do. Quote, when the last edition of the DSM-4 was published, identifying the symptoms of various illness in children, there was a jump in the medication for children. Some states even have laws that allow protective agencies to forcibly medicate and even make it a punishable crime to withhold a prescribed medication. And now there's an even newer version of this thing, DSM-5. It's called the Psychiatrist Bible. I'm skipping here a little bit for the sake of the brevity of our show. But published in May 2013, version 5, new and improved, continues, quote, determining insurance benefits and disability. So this is defining the legal insurance category of disability and those payouts. It affects the availability of special education and social services and is a staple in court proceedings. So one guy dissented, one psychiatrist employed at the National Institute of Mental Health wrote that he had questions basically about this approach and that he would like to see other factors like genetic markers and biometrics and other things factored in when diagnosing mental illness. And his organization, in collusion with the APA, forced him to retract in writing 2 weeks later. It took him 2 weeks to jump on this guy and get him to do a 180, in his opinion. So that same guy's name's Incel was probably pink-slipped after this incident, but not before he could contribute this complete assurance that no one need question the authority of the APA or its DMS, because the National Institute of Mental Health, quote, has not changed its position on DSM-5. And In the past 50 years, the DSM has gone from listing 130 to 374 mental illnesses. That means they invented 244 new diseases in half a century. And that also means there are hundreds more billing codes available to doctors' offices as new revenue streams. A majority of these new mental illnesses afflict children. How many students do you know who take drugs prescribed by a shrink on the recommendation of a school psychologist who is not a medical doctor? A survey of the top 50 psychiatry earners for 2009-2010 revealed that they were paid by the top 7 pharmaceutical companies. Are you concerned yet? Speak up now or forever hold your peace. Of course, if you do, you display one of the symptoms of ODD. Are you concerned now? What do you guys think?
Wow, just wow. I'll tell you what, I'm not really surprised anymore that Big Pharma wants to make money, and so does the whole medical industry. So that means when you talk to spiritually gifted people like ourselves and indigos, and we're all just mental. And
well, indigos often are considered to have the oppositional defiance disorder.
Oh, right. And I agree with that. But I guess my point I'm trying to make is I'm not really surprised at the attempts of just the elites and everybody wanting to dumb down society and keep all of us docile. Here's a perfect way for them to try and do it. I don't agree with it because those are qualities that each person has that makes each person different. It doesn't make you odd as far as, their definition should be considered. I'm not surprised.
Well, what we're speaking of here isn't oddity of behavior. What we're speaking of is the oppositional defiance disorder, which is termed odd. And so, fortunately for me, just being odd isn't going to get me put on a mental health list, maybe for right now. But to have the behaviors associated, with the oppositional defiance. And Jean, your article is correct. That is generally a child diagnosis. And the medication given is for the, docility in the classroom. Because heavens forbid that a child should be having freedom of thought. And I know that often there's a lot of difference in the two. But that's really a good article.
Well, thank you so much. But you speak as if you know, Kat.
I do.
Do you have some direct experience with these medications given to children?
Yes.
Tell us a little more if you can.
Well, I can't go very far because it wasn't my child.
Mm-hmm. But can you? I mean, these drugs. Am I right that a school psychologist makes an assessment and passes it on to a doctor, a psychiatrist is a medical doctor. It's a pediatrician in this case, but a medical doctor of some kind who has the ability to actually write a drug prescription. Is that
or
correct?
Even a nurse practitioner, for that matter?
Well, this is not something that's done lightly, and it's not just some individual at the school that decides to write this kid up. This is basically a child who has a history of disruption in the classroom, a child who has a history of violent outbreaks when told they can't do something. That's what the oppositional defiance is. They do not take direction, and they can become violent. So at that point, they're spending time in detention, or they're spending time in a special education facility within the school structure. And if it continues, then they do get a referral. They are trying to, make the environment safe for the majority of children.
What kind of referral? A referral to
the school counselors. And then the school counselors will speak with the parents, and often the children's physicians become involved.
So do these drugs make the children zombies?
No.
Or sheep?
But they do make them easier to control is a very dangerous term. There's all levels of control. It's like medication for attention deficit disorder. Does that make them zombies? No,
Is that
but
a
it
made-up
helps them
disease?
control their minds.
It's methamphetamines.
It is
Some people wonder
amphetamines,
if-
but they work
if-
different on those children than they. I have ADD.
Some
I'm
people wonder if
unmedicated.
ADD is a made-up disease as well.
No, it is not.
No, at least, or maybe over-applied.
I've even thought so
Over-applied.
about schizophrenia.
Why don't we continue this discussion after our next commercial break?
Oh, okay.
That time. So you are listening
that
to
was
Paraversal
wonderful.
Universe, and we will
Thank
be
you,
right
Kat.
back with our guest for the next segment.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama. Since 1948, Fate Magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Son of a...
Hey, son.
Mother...
Son, what are you doing?
Hey, Mom. I'm getting ready to listen to Periscope Uncensored.
By expanding your vocabulary.
Well, it is uncensored.
Son, the uncensored part of Periscope Uncensored is Jax and I getting down to brass tacks with all aspects of the paranormal. There's no fluff on our show.
So, no off-color commentary?
I didn't say that.
Awesome! What?
Son?
I just hit my head.
Oh boy, I'll go get you an ice pack. Catch Periscope Uncensored Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, only on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting. The best in paranormal talk radio.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but...
Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting. Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 23 minutes after the hour.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back from our commercial break. This is Paraversal Universe, produced by WBHM Digital Broadcasting. Also heard on WCET-FM, the Rift Radio Network, and Amelia Pisano Productions. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Malik. And this hour, we are in the Paralogian Report mode, following our interview with Jax Atwell. We are joined by fellow correspondents, psychologist, ufologist, and astrologist Jean Broida, and paralogian, producer, and paranormal investigator Kat Hobson. Let's take a quick moment to mention our AM/FM affiliates on terrestrial radio, including WCET 101.7 FM, Columbia, South Carolina, Columbia Talk, High Point Radio 100.5 FM and 1620 AM out of New Jersey, which broadcasts in New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. Hello to all of you people. Thank you so much for tuning in. Glad you were with us. This segment is brought to you by the Parasociology like page on Facebook. Parasociology is a study of how paranormal manifestations and experiences can affect a family, a group, or a collective. Parasociology also examines how spirituality is practiced in different cultures. So go check that out if you get a chance, and leave a like for future content. All right, back to the show. This is this is Paraversal Universe. Enter the Paralogian Report, an audio news magazine about fringe topics around the world. And I didn't get my I didn't share my opinion when we went off, and that's that I think it is a control move to control people. For example, you have states that are legalizing medicinal marijuana, but they're passing laws that say, for example, if you have any medical or mental disorders, I should say, then you, of course, don't get that privilege or that right. And when you look at the DSM-5 or 4 or 3 or any of them, I mean, to me, I believe that it's just like the article or Gene said, they've invented so many that it's to the point now where character traits are becoming diseases. Yes. Character traits. Right. That's wrong. Right. And, you know, I was looking at my mom's comment in the commercial. She said, you know, they wanted to give me, Kevin, drugs in grade school. Well, thank you. Can you fix that? Thank you. There we go. And it says it turned out that he was a lot smarter than the rest of the class. Thank you, Mom. He was simply bored. He would not, my parents would not allow me to take those drugs. My dad's a pharmacist and said many of those kids didn't need the drugs they were prescribed. And yeah, you know, we know the government experiments on people with drugs. It's documented. You know, Big Pharma is in bed with the government. It's 1 + 1. I mean, so without everyone's, you know, you can. It's so easy to go see a nurse practitioner or a doctor and get a script for basically amphetamines or anything else just by saying a few things. You know, they don't. I think they should. Yeah, there should be other science along to collaborate that, just like we do investigations. We were just talking about that the first hour with Jax. Before you determine anything, you need much evidence. You can't just pick at one little thing and say, whoa! So that's my little rant. I'll leave it at that. So coming up next is Kat Hobson has brought some content to the table.
Well, I have, and thank you, Kevin. I appreciate your opinion and your speaking about that.
Thank you.
I had a son that I fought the world about the ADD medication for. So,
well, I'm not saying it doesn't. Well, yeah, no, I'm not saying it doesn't help certain people, and I'm not saying there isn't cause for that. I just think it's overprescribed at this point because there are kickbacks and benefits for doctors and so many other reasons that it's yeah. But just, you know, I think we all agree that, yeah, I mean, there are times when you know, and like there are disorders out there.
Yes.
But we, you know, when we start,
but my problem with ODD, just to wrap it up, this acting out disorder, which is, according to Kat, and I have no reason to doubt it, mostly diagnosed in children. But when you apply the same filter, the same criteria to adults, Pablo Picasso, Albert Einstein, Stephen Hawking, these are the kind of people who would fit the definition of this mental disease and all of its consequences and implications, insurance categorizations, court proceedings, court classifications. This is not trivial. It's very important, and I never heard of it until I just chanced upon someone else's social media post. And here I find that people I know are very familiar with cases of children who maybe this disease does apply to.
Well, it's generally picked up in small children because they are so reactive. But it is an interesting topic, and like I said, it was a good article. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and that's
just one pause.
And that's why I like the Paralogian report, because you get more than one perspective.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, and that means it's balanced better. So what do you have, Kat?
Well, I am a paranormal investigator, and this article caught my eye. This is from quickanddirtytips.com. It's a fairly interesting site, but the article that I'm going to share today is 6 possible scientific reasons for ghosts. And this is by Sabrina Stierwall, PhD, with Everyday Einstein. So, many people believe in ghosts, but could there be scientific explanations for some of our paranormal experiences? If you believe in ghosts, you're far from alone. Around 45% of Americans believe in ghosts, and as many as 18% will go so far as to say they've had contact with a ghost. I will also admit to speaking myself out on occasion when my dog has refused to stop barking at what appears to be an empty corner of the house. But what makes us feel like we are in the presence of a supernatural spirit? Are there possible scientific explanations for that tingling sensation you get in the back of your neck? Or the sudden feeling of uneasiness with an origin you can't quite place? Let's investigate 6 possible explanations for that paranormal feeling that are rooted in science rather than the supernatural. And the 6 possible scientific reasons for ghosts would be low-frequency sound, mold, carbon monoxide, the power of suggestion, drafts, and that we simply enjoy being afraid. And in a little more detail, 1. Low-frequency sound. Just as the human eye can only see light at a range of frequencies, for example, we can't see radio waves, the human ear can only hear sounds in a range of frequencies. Above 20,000 hertz, sounds are too high-pitched for our ears to parse them, like the echolocation calls of most bats that fall in this ultrasonic range. Similarly, human ears have trouble hearing low-frequency sounds below minus 20 hertz, known as infrasound, but such sounds do not go totally unnoticed. In a 2003 study, 22% of concert goers who were exposed to sounds at 17 hertz reported feeling uneasy or sorrowful, getting chills or nervous feelings of revulsion and fear. So what are some of the more ordinary origins of such low-frequency sounds? Weather events like earthquakes and volcanic activity or lightning, and communication between animals, including elephants, whales, and hippos, all can produce infrasound. And if you don't live by any volcanoes or hippos, but still think your house may be haunted, humans also create low-frequency sound via diesel engines, wind turbines, or some loudspeakers or chemical explosions. For number 2, mold. Breathing in toxic mold can be bad for your respiratory system, but it can also be bad for your brain. Exposure to mold is known to cause neurologic symptoms like delirium, dementia, or irrational fears. So, is it a coincidence that the houses we suspect are haunted also tend to be in disrepair and so quite possibly full of toxic mold? Scientists have worked to draw a firm link between the presence of mold and reported ghost sightings, but so far the evidence is mostly anecdotal. Number 3, carbon monoxide. Just as breathing in mold could lead us to see, hear, and feel things that aren't really there, so too can breathing in too much carbon monoxide. We have carbon monoxide detectors in our homes to make sure we're not breathing in this odorless, colorless gas that slowly poisons us while going undetected by our senses. But before a carbon monoxide gas leak poisons us, it can cause auditory hallucinations, a feeling of pressure on your chest, and an unexplained feeling of dread. An often told ghost story from the 1920s is about the H family, who moved into a new house only to hear footsteps, see apparitions, and feel malicious paranormal presences. Turned out to be the result of carbon monoxide poisoning from a broken furnace. The power of suggestion. Studies suggest that we are more likely to believe in a paranormal experience if someone else who was there can back up our belief. So while we might be able to convince ourselves that we were somehow mistaken about what we saw or heard, we tend to put more stock into someone else's eyewitness account if it also backs our suspicions. So our belief in ghosts can be catching. Similarly, I would like to extend an apology to anyone I ever played a game of Ouija with as a kid. The toy game board used to contact spirits always proved too tempting to resist, so the one moving it was always me and not a paranormal spirit, even though I was just as excited as everyone else. I know someone else who did that, just as an aside. Wasn't me. Number 5, drafts. As the days get hotter and air conditioning becomes more and more expensive, I rely more on opening windows to cool my home. Opening windows on opposite ends of a room can create a nice breeze, but it can also create cold spots as the airflow outside changes, causing cooler air to enter a warmer room. Drafts can also sneak in through chimneys and cause doors to slam or doorknobs to rattle. So before you schedule a seance, try closing a few windows. Number 6, we enjoy being afraid. Neurologists have found that our brains release dopamine, a chemical associated with pleasure, when we're afraid. Exactly how much dopamine and how many receptors we have for receiving it can influence whether you are a person that enjoys being frightened or someone who would rather avoid scary movies or rides altogether. So, for some, letting our imaginations run wild with the possibilities of cohabiting with ghosts, although scary, may also produce a bonus euphoric high. Of course, believing in ghosts also allows us to believe in the existence after life, which ultimately can be comforting. That is, if you can get past the feeling that someone is standing just behind you as you read this. Until next time, she says goodbye. And as a paranormal investigator, I found this simplistic and still interesting, especially like the drafts part, because I am aware that fireplaces can draft. It's their job to do that. But what do y'all think? Jean, I know that you're not a paranormal investigator, but Kevin and Jennifer, y'all are. And Jean, a lot of this stuff is your
I was thinking,
process.
my first thought was that this is so parallel to UFO research. In other words,
I was just going to say,
what you read was a
paranormal
debunking article, basically a debunking article, and it's not. And yes, even with UFOs, as with UFOs, many cases reported are successfully debunked. That is, that which was reported as unidentified becomes identified. And I think this is what that writer was doing with ghosts. Am I right there? Take it away, Kevin and Jen.
Well, yeah. I mean, every time we investigate a case, you gotta the idea is to rule everything else out before you even go to that paranormal, before you look into the paranormal.
Exactly.
Because otherwise, exactly. I mean, there are so many things that can cause or are similar to, what we call paranormal. Now, does that mean, and yeah, for instance, I believe that carbon monoxide, to me, that was one of the out of the 6 you mentioned, some held more credence to me than others. With carbon monoxide, it would be a short window, and you'd have to get just the right amount that would affect you in ways that wouldn't kill you, or dumb you down to the point of passing out and dying. But yeah, the idea in general that different gases can affect people, different mold spores can even affect people, in ways which may cause us to hallucinate or whatever. Of course, we look at other things like repetition and
right. You can get here's another example: creaky floors. It could be depending on the weather. If you're investigating a home and it's the kind of weather that we're experiencing up here, wood swells. So there's an example of what people can mistake for phantom footsteps on wood when it's really wood creaking.
Yes. What we got right now is, and this has happened a couple times this week. Someone's pounding on my house, and it's like, no, the ice is cracking.
Yeah.
Okay, because we have so much ice buildup right now. When the ice is melting and it cracks, you're bam on the house.
Whoa.
Because, but people
That's
think
a little freaky.
Yeah.
The phantom draft could be attributed to something wrong with the window fixture. Flickering lights, shortage in the circuit system, or shorted light bulbs. I mean, there's so much. There's actually a book, and I can't remember her name. We have it in the library somewhere. It's literally called "Is Your House Haunted?" And she goes through the motions of the whole entire book, and she explains this stuff to you, and she breaks it down so you know the difference between what your experience was actually natural phenomena versus paranormal phenomena.
You're right.
I'm no expert, but it seems to me if you walk into the kitchen and all the furniture is piled on top of the table, like I've seen in some of these movies, that would make me think that you are in some mischief on the part of the children in the house or other people. I would say, yeah, that's something notable. I'd make a note. Keep an eye on that.
I would say,
but in terms of a curtain fluttering, oh, come on, give me a break.
Exactly, especially with closed air heating and cooling.
Imagine a child reading this article, right, or a teenager. I've been hanging out on a social media watch party page on Facebook, which is a lot of youthful viewers of horror films, horror genre, which I've never looked at before. And you talk about this sense of fear, group fear, it building on itself and building from others, getting all psyched up about ghosts. Some of these films are about ghosts, and some of them are not good, but some of them are very good. And some of the stuff they're showing, I have to think, is based on reports and accounts. You could make this stuff up, and a lot of it's creepy deepy, as I call it clinically, and some of it I think really can't be debunked. Anyone who has half a brain should be able to tell the difference between a spiritual presence and a draft, I would think.
It's like Jennifer was saying when you were talking with Jax, Jen, when your best tool is you.
Yeah. Yeah, you are your body and your senses and your best piece of equipment, because if you walk into a home or a business place, if something's there, you will pick up on that before your equipment will.
Yes. And can I point out that it's break time? Yes,
it is.
Yes.
So if you are listening to Paraversal Universe, we will be right back with our guests for the next segment.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 45 minutes after the hour.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Paraversal Universe. Excuse me. Okay. Welcome back to Paraversal Universe on WBHM Digital Broadcasting. Also heard on WCET 101.7 FM terrestrially, as well as the Rift Radio Network family and the EPPRN on Blog Talk. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Malik. We're glad you are with us, as always. Sorry about that. Something distracted me for a second. Anyways, we want to tell everyone that starting this weekend, and we were going to start this last weekend, but we had to postpone it a week. But we're going to offer the T-shirt for the logo and painting for Lake Monstrosities for purchase. Half the proceeds will go to charity and the specific cause to help 8-year-old Daniel D. Miza, who suffers from Dravet syndrome and seizures on a regular basis. The other half of the proceeds will go to making more shirts to continue the endeavor. This is the son of our graphic art director, Lawrence D. Miza, the same little boy who painted our logo picture for Lake Monstrosities that we use to this very day. Lake Monstrosities is a group on Facebook dedicated to aquatic mysteries and wonders. This is the most excellent way to give back to the Demiza family for all their friendship, artwork, and graphic art they provide every week and for the show. And of course, Lake Monstrosities, like I said, the largest social media group outlet dedicated to aquatic mysteries and wonders. So look for those shirts coming soon here. It's a great group, great artwork, great T-shirt, and most importantly, a good cause, a great cause. So, yeah, look for that. This segment is brought to you by the 5-star Reader Choice Award-winning epic fantasy trilogy Helm by Robert L. Malik. All right, back to the show. This is Paraversal Universe, and we are in the Paralogian report mode. And who's next? You. I am. Okay. So what I have is from LasVegasNow.com. Looks like Channel 8. And this is by George Knapp and Matt Adams. February 26, 2019. Las Vegas. I'm looking for the title here. Okay. I-Team, Nevada's Triangle, Unexplained Disappearances. 11 years ago, this month, hikers found identification belonging to Steve Fawcett, who was a famous aviator, and adventurer that had vanished a year earlier. The vast search for Fawcett focused attention on what is now called the Nevada Triangle. It's not. It's an area not nearly as infamous as the Bermuda Triangle, but has seen actually far more disappearances. In 2007, famed aviator Steve Fawcett flew out of a landing strip in northern Nevada and vanished. For months, searchers combed the rugged mountains looking for Fawcett. What they found were 8 other plane wrecks that no one knew about. By one estimate, 2,000 planes have vanished in the last 60 years in what the pilots call the Nevada Triangle, the vast area between Las Vegas, Reno, and Fresno. That averages out to about 3 planes per month, far more than even that even disappear in the Bermuda Triangle that we know of. Scientists have determined that strong winds from the Pacific create a powerful downdraft when they cross the Sierra, strong enough to slam small planes into the ground. But many of the aircraft have gone missing weren't small at all. A B-24 bomber and other military craft among them. The Nevada Triangle, a graveyard for planes. Powerful winds and treacherous weather are major factors in why so many planes crash or vanish in what's called the Nevada Triangle. But it's far more than just planes that disappear. It's also people. 10 strange facts about the Nevada Triangle. Then I pulled out a map of Nevada and California and almost fell out of my seat because the larger cluster zone we've established is that of the Nevada Triangle. And there's 2 other cluster zones also that in that triangle were the words of David Paulides, investigator and author of Missing 411 books. For 9 years, the former police officer turned author David Paulides has scoured through about 20,000 missing person files based on very specific criteria. He whittled them down to about 1,200 seemingly inexplicable mysteries, people who vanish under unusual circumstances. In a series of books, Missing 411, Paulides has identified dozens of clusters, many of them national parks or forests, where the number of missing is way out of the ordinary. 3 of those clusters exist within the Nevada Triangle, including, at the top of the list, Yosemite National Park. There's no concrete one item that can say is causing that. And that's because of no tracks, no scent trail, no witnesses. We've had people say it's got to be UFOs, it's got to be reptilians, Bigfoot, dogmen, it's got to be this, it's got to be that. In reality, I don't think you can say it's just one thing, Paulides said. Often the missing vanishes into thin air while others, hikers, let me say that again. Often the missing vanishes into thin air while with other hikers. That's better. Dogs are unable to pick up any scent. There are no tracks. Small children who vanish are found a day later many miles away, over mountain ranges. Human abductions and animal tracks are ruled out. For years, Paulides requested lists from the National Park Service, but was told they don't keep any such list. More recently, Yosemite officials have opened up. It might be 10 years later, you find a shoe, a piece of clothing, said Scott Griedman, Yosemite National Park Ranger. Paulides has also investigated cases closer to home, including the 1966 disappearance of 6-year-old Larry Jeffrey of the Henderson, who vanished with his family on Mount Charleston in 1977, case of a missing woman near Topona. While some have tried to link the mystery to Area 51 military base, but that facility is far to the east of the Triangle's boundaries. While speaking to a national conference of search and rescue experts, Paulides was addressed by a pair of state troopers. They said, "Dave, you're talking about things that nobody in this room wants to talk about. Everybody knows what's going on. Everybody here faces it, but nobody wants to talk about it." So that's the article.
I think the first thing that comes to mind when I hear about something like this, one of many factors certainly seems, and we've talked about this, I can't even count on 2 hands how many times, portals.
It's a possibility.
There's a possibility that people could actually be walking into portals and not realizing it. You have the whole Bigfoot theory. You have dogmen. You have serial killers. You have so many avenues that you can go down.
Yeah, and I think
and it's mind-boggling, but it makes you wonder, and that is an interesting article.
That is a great article.
And I think that I think it's a little of everything. Because he's looked at David Paulides, for example, and I'm sure others at this point have looked at these cases, and if they're like, we were not finding anything that can rule everything else out, and we can say it's this. And that tells me that there are variations of what's going on. So it may be like, it could be a plethora of things.
Right.
Including bizarre things, bizarre abductions for various reasons. So, Jean?
What was weird about Paulides' research was that these disappearing people were disappearing from the perimeters of national parks, the edges, the boundary between parkland and non-parkland. He got chummy with National Forest Service employees who rotate as part of their service. They rotate around parks every few years. And they reported similar phenomenon basically everywhere they went. And that it got, not only did it get no media attention, the Park Service is trying to sweep it under the rug. Because who will want to visit a national park if there's some chance you'll up and disappear? And there were freaky cases where the parents were hiking around a ridgetop path and basically a grassy meadow with one tree or shrub in the middle blocking the view of their campsite. It was basically a truck with the tailgate down and an awning, and kids, 2 or 3 kids playing on the bed of this truck on a mattress, having a great time, laughing. You could hear them. They were just being kids, just being themselves. The parents lose sight of the truck behind this one piece of vegetation. And when they come out the other side, one of these kids is gone. And they found his traces. I believe it was one of those cases where he was found at a much higher altitude. His body was found at a much higher altitude. And in many of these cases, the victims are missing their shoes. They're partially undressed. There was a creepy case where two searchers were sweeping the woods looking for a young man who knew the woods, was a hunter, had gone missing, just didn't come back. And there was a grid search. 2 working as a pair came upon a very large fallen tree. One of them decided to go around it. The other went over the top. And it was as tall as him, probably, that big of a tree. It was substantially big to be formidable. So he got on top, and he got there first. And he looked down, and he was looking down on a pair of pants, blue jeans, that looked like a person had removed them by just unbuckling and dropping trow. And they were inside the boots, but there were no socks. And the shirt was nearby in a bush or something, as I recall. But what was really gruesome was that the remains of this guy, or at least shredded bones, fiber-sized bone fragments were analyzed at the scene, and they littered the ground. Like something had chewed this guy, which doesn't discount what Jen said about a portal. If you came across a very potent energy field and you weren't expecting it, it couldn't. I mean, who knows what it could do? Not saying it couldn't.
So we are at the very tail end of the show. I'm going to read through this quick. Thank you, Gene and Kat, for coming on in such short notice and hanging with us.
Yes, thank you.
Such a pleasure. That was a great article.
Always fun.
I'm sorry, we don't have more time. We'd like to thank everyone for tuning in to Paraversal Universe. We'd like to thank our guest, Jax Menez Atwell, for a fantastic interview during the first hour, and Kat Hobson and Jean Breida for their correspondence during the second half. Next Friday will be a full episode of the Paralogian Report, so check that out. We will be back here next week with more of this. And feel free to support any of the networks mentioned here tonight, as well as the Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society Limited 501c3 nonprofit organization, by donating. It's folks like you who ensure these excellent organizations will be here tomorrow. To the believer, the evidence is overwhelming.
And to the skeptic, there will never be enough.
Thank you. Good night. God bless you. Everyone have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you here next week.
Good night, everyone.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting. The best in paranormal talk radio.